Hello, everyone. I'm back with another edition of Just BS 101, a series through which I am making an honest attempt to share some of my learnings from the business of sports. Today, let's talk about what I like to call the gamification flywheel. But before we get to the actual flywheel, let's start off by understanding what gamification itself truly means. Quite simply put, gamification can imply any interactive or rewarding experience for sports fans that is aimed in the longer run to boost their participation and loyalty towards a certain sports brand on their digital assets. As we can imagine, there can be different layers to gamification, starting from the most basic casual gaming or arcade gaming. Now, these are simple games that can appeal to the masses, not necessarily to the most hardcore of the fans, but also to the long tail of casual fans that would like to engage with you. The next level to this is where fans would need a certain understanding of the team, of the league, or of the sport in itself, which is in the form of predictive gaming or fantasy gaming. The next level to this is when you convert those predictive games into contest based or streak based games. So, as against predicting outcomes for one game on one day, you do that over a series of different matches or events. And then there are gratifications linked to your level of engagement through the entire period. And finally, you have the larger umbrella concept of life cycle level loyalty programs that go beyond just gaming and actually take into account different kinds of behaviors that are performed by fans on their digital assets, be it content consumption, be it just the frequency of engagement with the mobile app, etc. Or let's say the kind of transactions that you're doing in terms of merchandise, ticketing, etc., by virtue of which you're earning points and you can redeem benefits in the longer run. All of this put together through different levels is what we can broadly term as gamification. Now, with that context, let's dive deeper into the gamification flywheel to understand what it means and how it can empower sports organizations to drive tangible digital outcomes in the longer run. The journey begins with emotional resonance. This leads to higher platform stickiness, and that leads to better fan data enrichment. That's a lot of jargon. So let's try to break this down and understand it with a simple example. Let's say you are a fan of the IPL in general and you follow a particular team, specifically, maybe the team that represents your city. And your team is playing a match that is currently in a very tightly contested situation, hanging in the balance. Let's imagine the IPL app having a live polling feature where fans across the world can express their opinions on, given the situation, which team is more likely to end up winning. Your propensity of participating in this particular activation is very high when you're actually following a live game. And that is exactly the definition of an emotionally resonant moment, as we can see on the flywheel. By participating in this activation on a very subliminal level, you are expressing your support for your team or even fighting it out on the digital playground. What happens now is, let's say your team ends up winning that match. It creates a very good memory in your mind, and you are very likely to come back again for the next match and the next match after that to participate in this kind of a polling activation that leads to platform stickiness. Now, imagine this happening across millions of fans and what impact that can have on the digital outcomes for that particular platform. In the case of the example, the IPL app, metrics like number of users participating, time spent by the users, or let's say number of page views being driven on that particular application are bound to skyrocket. What this also does is it allows the platform to seek more information from you as a fan. Now, let's say it's very clear from your participation that you are the fan of team A. I now pose a question to you saying, in this team, who is your favorite player? So the next time that particular player is out there on the field, I can get you to engage with something that is very specific to that player. Let's say I drop a discount on the jersey with that player's number on the back. That is what we mean by fan data enrichment. The longer that a fan spends on the platform, higher is the opportunity for the owner of that particular platform to seek more information, enhance their understanding of you, in a bigger way. Now, what is it that transforms this cycle into a flywheel such that on every iteration, the loop becomes stronger than earlier? Platform stickiness, or more time spent on the platform, means higher propensity for fans to share their data. Now, what do you do with this data? You use that to personalize the experience for fans, either on the interface or through the CRM communication that you run in parallel. What does that do? Let's continue the example. On the next match to follow, we now have the power to create a moment that is more emotionally resonant because of a better understanding of the fan that we've been able to evolve on account of the data that we collected in the previous iteration. Now that we've understood what gamification means and the potential that the gamification flywheel holds for sports organizations in the longer run, let's conclude by taking a look at a few tactical examples of the impact that fantasy games have driven for major sports organizations. Starting with the NFL, fantasy players were found to be 2x more likely to follow NFL matches closely. A survey was conducted in the IPL fantasy ecosystem, and that found that 59% of these fantasy users also started following other sports merely by the virtue of the extension of fantasy in these particular sports. Next in line, NBA. Fantasy related activities were directly attributable to a 12% rise in the league pass subscriptions. The Premier League, as all of us know, probably the largest experiment in fantasy with over 11 to 12 million users participating every year, every season, in fact. 79% of these 11, 12 million users have actually opted in to receiving communications from their respective favorite clubs. What that means is it opens doors for all kinds of CRM, be it more retention on their platforms in general, be it promotion of commercial offerings such as merchandise, etc. The list is limitless. And finally, PGA Tour. One major challenge that many rights holders and federations are facing today is how do you engage the youngest lot of fans, the millennials, the Gen Z audiences? Fantasy integration into the PGA Tour was credited to a 29% rise in the viewership for the PGA among this younger audience. In a nutshell, then, what is the takeaway from the gamification flywheel? It's important for us to realize that gamification is no longer a side project. It builds sustainable loyalty and sustainable digital revenue for sports organizations across the world. Hope you found this useful. Stay tuned for more.